Hey everyone, welcome to the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro here. Rube, how are you?
I'm doing well. I was watching the USS New Jersey being towed from dropped from Camden down to Paulsboro, and then eventually in a couple of days down to the Navy Yard, not far from our office. So I think that's pretty cool. First time it's been moved in 30 years. They're going to do some work on it and bring it back to Camden.
Okay. So what made you choose that over March Madness?
I did have the Duquesne game on and then I had both. I was kind of watching both at the same time. Great upset by Duquesne to get March Madness started over BYU, 11-6 game.
Yeah, it is always fun. I enjoy this time of year getting to what, and it's funny. I'm not a huge college basketball guy. I know you're probably into it more than I am, but everyone kind of stops and watches it right now. I stopped doing a bracket though. I don't do a bracket anymore.
I haven't for years. It wasn't fun for me because I ended up. I'd have to root for Duke or something. It's like
that's exactly my reasoning. I don't want to root for Duke.
That's exactly why I stopped. But it's it's a shame there's no Philly teams in it, which is kind of unusual. Both Philly teams lost in the first round of the NIT, so it's not quite the same. I didn't go to a Big Five school, so I root for all of them and Drexel. I guess, if you went to Villanova, you're not going to sit there during the tournament and root for St. Joe's or Temple. But I root for all of them. They're all great programs. It's a shame none of them made it in.
Yeah. All right. That's all we have on March Madness. We have a lot of football stuff to talk about today, though.
We do.
The Eagles are reminding
Eagles'
us.
own March Madness is
they do. Really taking the thunder today from tournament basketball. They go out and sign Parris Campbell. Huge move. Not exactly, but the Eagles have kept adding here in free agency. It's a good reminder that after the initial flurry, you can add good players. So we'll go through a few of the ads they've made this week. We'll talk about a couple of losses that have kind of gone under the radar a little bit. We'll each pick a free agent who's still available we think might make sense for the Eagles. And then at the end, I want to preview the owners' meetings a little bit. I'm headed down to Orlando next week for that event. But let's start with the recent additions. Rube, Parris Campbell on Thursday. We had Tyler Hall on Wednesday, and then earlier this week, PJ Mustipher. Let's start with Parris Campbell. He's probably the biggest name of this bunch. What do you make of this?
Mustipher's a pretty big name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, it's kind of like a lot of these guys. He has not had a good career. He was a second round pick. It was him or J-Jaw for the Eagles in the 2019 draft. Obviously, Metcalf was there as well. A.J. Brown was earlier in that round. There were a bunch of really good and really bad receivers in that second round of the 2019 draft. But his first 3 years, he was hurt pretty much the whole 3 years. Then he had an okay fourth season with the Colts. Signs 1-year deal with the Giants. It did not go well last year. He barely had 100 yards for the season. He was inactive, healthy scratch the last 5 weeks of the season. He's had a terrible career. He's been awful, and this is kind of the theme of a lot of these moves for Howie. Underachieving guys who you're getting really, really cheap, who at some point did something to give Howie the notion that in the right situation, maybe there's something there. And if there's not, it's not costing you anything. So 2 years ago, he caught 60 balls for 600 yards, 40 some odd balls for 600 yards.
It was 63 for 623 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. So it was his only functional season was 2022. Had one of his best games against the Eagles that year. I think he had 60. He's never had more than 76 yards in a game. He had a 31-yarder. That was that game the Eagles barely hung on to win in Indy, the Super Bowl season. But you're looking for that extra receiver. They signed Devontae Parker. I'm sure they're going to draft somebody. They got 4 guys futures contract guys, including Joseph Nagata, who I thought had a really nice camp last summer. And we'll see how it all sorts itself out. That you're trying to replace Julio Jones, OZ, Olamide Zaccheaus, and Quez Watkins, and I'm not sure these guys are upgrades, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think I have more confidence that Devontae Parker's an upgrade, or like more of an upgrade than Parris Campbell. And I'm not sure he will be an upgrade, but I think he has a better shot of that. But like I'm also okay with the Parris Campbell swing because it's not going to be a rich contract. He's a lottery ticket. I think the thing I'd be concerned about is, like, sure, you can sign all these lottery tickets. You just can't rely on them to be anything. You get them to camp and you see if they look good, and then it's a bonus, but it can't be looked at as anything more than a bonus with a guy like Campbell, I don't think.
Absolutely. And I think that goes for a lot of these guys, a lot of these free agents. They're guys who haven't had good careers, maybe had one decent season, and I don't know how much you can count on them, but I'd be stunned if there's not, if they don't get a receiver in the draft at some point, not too late, because right now I don't think they have a 3. They might have a 4. They might. Yeah. I don't think they have a 3.
They might have a 3. I think the upside, when we talked about this on a previous pod, the upside with Parker is that he can be a 3 and he can be a little more reliable than the guys they had there last year, but I don't have a ton of confidence in that.
Yeah, he could be a 3, but I'd be surprised if he is. And, but sometimes change of scenery, coming into a new situation, he's going to have good people around him. Whoever the 3 is going to have good 1 and 2 are going to take a lot of coverage. So these guys have a chance. And I like these kind of moves because you could invent a guy. You could just kind of, get a guy rejuvenated and a new start. And if you don't, you're not out anything.
Yeah, you mentioned that the Eagles almost drafted Parris Campbell. For those who don't know, back in 2019, they were sitting on the clock at 57, and Mecole Hardman had just gone before to the Chiefs. So it really came down to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside or Parris Campbell. And I think Jeffrey Lurie ended up being the tiebreaker because apparently Parris Campbell had some soft tissue injuries they were concerned about, and then ended up going with J-Jaw. I'm not sure either of them would have worked out here. We know one of them didn't, certainly. Don't know what Campbell would have done here. He certainly didn't do much in Indy, but there's the Nick Sirianni connection with him. He was the receivers coach when they drafted him out there, so there's some familiarity, but he didn't do anything under Nick.
Right. But I mean, J-Jaw caught 16 passes in his career. At least this guy's had some decent games and some decent, made some plays. The 2 longest catches of his career, he's had 2 40-yard catches in his entire career. One was a 51-yard touchdown from Carson. The other was a 49-yard catch from Nick Foles. So his 2 longest catches with the Colts from Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, and I look, the Eagles are always kind of on board with adding cheap speed. We've seen them try this before, and it hasn't really worked. But and look, I don't know how fast Parris Campbell is now. Coming out of college, he was blazing fast. He ran a 4.31. He had next level speed. So the Eagles think they can get anything out of that speed. They're going to try. You look back at this 2019 class, though, and it is really funny the way things went because you had, everyone looks at DK Metcalf. And obviously the Eagles screwed up that evaluation, but it wasn't about the player. It was about the medical didn't check out for them. So they just weren't going to draft DK Metcalf.
Yeah. I think Andy Isabella was in that draft too. Another second-round pick who hasn't done anything.
Yeah. So here are the receivers in that range. It went Mecole Hardman at 56, J-Jaw 57, Campbell at 59, Andy Isabella at 62. DK Metcalf was the last pick of the second round at 64. And then even in the third round, you had Deontay Johnson at 66, Jalen Hurd, who unfortunately never got to play in the league. He had a bunch of injuries. And then 76, this is the one Jeff Lurie has said they really missed, was Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
Because at least DK, obviously you have to recalibrate when you medically red flag someone and they end up having a really successful career. Like, what did we miss? Did we miss something? But at least you can explain it. Whereas with McLaurin, they just missed it.
And McLaurin ended up in your division. See him twice a year. I think he's really good. He's had a really nice career with seemingly a different quarterback every game, every year. But yeah, it was Jay Jaw was a great kid, but gosh, 16 catches out of a second round pick. It's one of the worst second round picks Eagles have ever made. Bruce Walker's worse. And I'm not going to tell my Bruce Walker story, but I was wrong about him. I thought he was going to be pretty good. But at least this kid's still in the league and still bouncing around. So we'll see.
Yeah. Did not go well for him with the Giants last year. He only caught 20 passes for 100 yards.
108 was 104 yards all year.
104 yards. Ended up getting kind of benched.
Benched.
Yeah, he got benched by the end of the year. So no surprise. It's not like the Eagles stole another one from the Giants. They weren't using him last year.
Yeah. Not just Ben. I mean, he was inactive their last 5 games. He didn't even dress out. So yeah, look, these kind of moves. This is a very low percentage chance that a move like this works out. But
yeah, and it's important to note that he is not a special teamer.
Right.
So when you're talking about your 5th, 6th receivers on a roster, those guys need to contribute on special teams. And like the Eagles brought in Devontae Parker and Parris Campbell. If one of them works out to be the 3, great. But if they don't, they're not going to give you anything on teams.
What are the odds they both make the team?
Probably not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, like individually, I think Parker has a much better shot.
What would you put his odds at?
Parker or Campbell?
Each one.
I'd go Parker at like 75.
See, I'd go lower than that.
Okay. It is tricky because we don't know.
We don't know
who else is going to be here.
Yeah. So I was going to say about 50% for Parker and probably about 15% for.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm with you on Campbell. I think I'm higher on the percentage for Parker.
That's fair.
I think they also might want a veteran in that room aside from, I know they have AJ and Devontae, but maybe like an older guy. I don't know. That's thought.
Parker's been around forever.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, I see what you mean. You mean including? All right.
Yeah. That's why I think he has that might be one of the reasons he sticks.
I thought you meant going out and getting someone else. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe not. How about Tyler Hall, 25-year-old nickel corner, undrafted out of Wyoming in 2020. He's played a little bit in the league, 31 games, 6 starts, has really played a lot more the last couple of years for the Las Vegas Raiders, which is always tricky for me to remember. Just nickel insurance? Is that what this is?
I guess, yeah. I mean, they've got to figure that position out. There's no clear answers. He's another cheap guy, and maybe he can be that slot, maybe not. But if not, it's not costing you anything to bring him in and see what he can do in camp. They got to figure that out. I mean, we talk about cornerback, but that's a starting position these days. And last year was a disaster. Different slot every week. Howie even mentioned at the combine how he should have done a better job preparing for that because they knew Maddox was prone to injuries, Avante. So yeah, he's certainly worth a look.
Yeah, I think it's ideal to just have a little bit more in stock at that position. Now I will give them a little bit of leniency because Zach McPherson got hurt last year and he was going to be the backup nickel. But yeah, when you go into a season with Avante Maddox as your starter at that spot, he's been injured all the time. You should have foreseen a scenario where he gets hurt and you're left with, a rotating cast, and they had to scramble and go sign Bradley Roby. So I think having Tyler Hall there is nice. I don't think it's the answer to the nickel corner spot necessarily.
No, if he's not, the answer's not here right now.
I agree.
So for right now, it's the best you can do. So I like the notion of drafting a corner that's got some inside skill. But then again, you're asking a rookie to come in and be an impact guy right from the get-go, which is a lot to ask unless he's a really high pick. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the answer. Maybe that first round pick will be a corner that's got some slot skill.
Yeah, we kind of forget it because of the way the Eagles have handled their rookies in recent years, but rookies are allowed to play. You're allowed to play those guys.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to play those guys.
Yeah, you don't have to be on the Nolan Smith program.
Yeah, or any of aside from Jalen Carter, most of their rookies.
I mean, Devontae played 900 some odd yards as a starter, but
Greg Ward wasn't going to keep him off the field.
Well, I'm just saying he did start, but yeah, I mean, you'll want your first round picks. They really need to be on the field and contributing, or then you start to wonder. I mean, if they're not. So yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Intrigued by him though. I like the idea of stocking that position a little better than they did last year.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then how about PJ Mustipher, undrafted out of Penn State last year, only played in 4 games with the Saints as a rookie, 42 defensive snaps, so didn't play an awful lot. Camp body, or does he have a chance to compete and maybe make the roster?
I liked Mike Mulhern, our producer, our huddle and pregame, postgame producer. He had a great conspiracy theory about him, that the Eagles signed him as a favor to James Franklin, for James Franklin to tell the NFL that he misquoted Saquon.
I think James Franklin's got to worry about keeping his mouth shut no matter what.
Probably true. But yeah, look, he's a camp body, a long shot. There's room to add there, certainly, but the cupboard's not bare at that position, certainly.
It's not, and I don't know how many spots are really available at that position. Like you obviously know Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Milton Williams are here. That's 3. Like I think the max they're going to keep is 6. Oro Ojimo seems like a pretty safe bet to be the 4th. They still have Marlon Tuipulotu. That might be it.
It might be, and they like Tuipulotu, and he did play better last year, and seemed to like Ojimo. So yeah, we'll see. But you bring him in and see what he's got, and certainly a candidate for the practice squad if he has a decent camp.
Yeah, but look, these guys are just a good reminder that free agency is not over. We've seen the Eagles make some much higher profile signings and additions after this period. Even last year, in recent years, they've made some big moves. James Bradbury wasn't on the team this time a couple years ago, and he ends up being a really big piece to a Super Bowl team. So they're far from done. I think the draft, you might not see anything major before the draft, but certainly after the draft, when teams kind of figure out what they have and what they need, then we'll see some more action. Yeah,
if there's a certain position Howie wants to address in the draft and he's unable to, then he'll get to work. And it's one thing I think it makes him a good GM is he talks about how the offseason never ends. And it kind of ends at the trade deadline. But even then, you can still get guys off the scrap heap, off the waiver wire. But really, the offseason goes from once your last game is played until the middle of the next season. And you can, and Howie will make moves year round. It keeps us on our toes and keeps us busy. But it's smart roster construction. There's no reason to limit it to just a certain time of year that supposedly is free agency or the draft. I mean, there's so many other ways, and he'll get guys from other leagues. He'll get guys who are retired. He'll get guys who, were suspended. I mean, he's very creative in, rugby players. I mean, he'll find guys who aren't obvious candidates.
Yeah, I appreciate the way he views trades because he'll be really opportunistic there with Detroit. Whether it's for a cornerback or running back, he'll find the players who don't want to be there and he'll get them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big part of personnel is understanding, who's going to have a contract issue coming up and who's disgruntled, who's upset about their playing time. Who can I maybe get for a little less than normal because he's unhappy? And that's where Howie, that's where you're always working the phones and getting as much information as you can. It's something he's really good at.
Yeah. You want to go through the Eagles from the 23 team who are still available?
Yeah.
Okay, I have the list in front of me here. We'll go offense first or defense first. Do you have a preference?
I kind of like alphabetical, but I know you're very ordered in how you like to do it. So let's go offense first.
We can go alphabetical if you
Ooh,
want.
okay.
You want to do that?
It won't bother you?
Well, I had them listed alphabetically by side of the football, so I
Let's
can
go offense.
Okay.
You'll be happier, I know, if we go offense first.
Okay, so they're alphabetical here. And we'll start with Julio Jones. I don't know. I don't know if Julio wants to keep playing. It might make sense for him to wait it out and see what opportunity shows itself, if any does.
Yeah, I don't think Julio wants to go to a training camp. I think Julio, if he does want to play some more, and look, if he retires, he's had an incredible career, Hall of Fame career. But he's not the kind of guy that's going to want to be out there under the blazing summer sun practicing in August. If he's going to play again, he'll stay in shape on his own terms. And then if somebody needs a receiver come September and the offer's right and it's a good team and it's a situation he likes, then maybe he'll go there.
September, I'm thinking like October, November.
It could be. He could be on that schedule, but
heck, pull the Zach Ertz, wait until the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think that was by choice, but yeah, I don't think he'll be doing anything for quite some time.
Yeah. How about Rashad Penny? I feel like in 10 years, I'm like, remember Rashad Penny was on this football team?
10 days, we might be saying that. I don't know if he's going to play again.
It's crazy. I mean, we thought, man, the Eagles might have gotten a low-risk home run. And it was low risk, but it was certainly not a home run.
Yeah, one of the stranger. I mean, he comes in with, at the time, the highest rushing average in NFL history. Just never plays. He didn't look great in training camp, but you kept waiting for, look, in a game, he's going to.
There were a few moments here and there where I thought he looked good on like a stretch run.
Yeah, there was a couple, but it's not like he had this overwhelming, trend. And what do you get? 8 carries all year?
Yeah.
Really strange, but if other teams see what the Eagles saw, then it's hard to imagine. Look, every year you got all these young guys coming out in the draft, these young running backs who got speed and they're healthy and they haven't taken the pounding. So
Rashad Penny had to be watching last year like, how is this the year DeAndre Swift stays healthy?
Yeah, well, if he hadn't, probably Boston would have been the next guy in anyway.
Yeah, speaking of Boston, he's still out there.
Yeah.
And next alphabetically.
Yeah, I planned that. One of your patented segues. Yeah, I mean, he'll be somewhere. I still think there's a good chance he's back here, depending what happens with the roster. The thing about Boston, he played a lot less this past year. I know they're very confident if they need him, he'll be fine. His biggest role really had been as a goal line guy, and now Jalen's kind of taken that role. I wouldn't mind seeing it split up a little bit. I'm not sure how if 25 goal line or short yardage runs is good for Jalen's long-term health, and Boston's really, really good at it. I mean, he's almost unstoppable at the goal line. That's why he's got like 20 career touchdowns and very limited playing time. But he'll be somewhere. I hope it's here. He's a good guy and he's a good player.
How about Quez? A little surprised no one has signed Quez.
Yeah.
The Eagles are signing Parris Campbell. Someone should sign Quez Watkins, right?
And Quez is the kind of guy that Howie would sign if he had been somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah. And if Howie just signed Quez, but it wasn't Quez, I think people would be like, oh.
Right.
Some real upside here.
Look at his numbers in 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he will get signed. It's not going to be anything more than minimum. But I would certainly, if I was a GM with another team, I'm like, this he's still got the great speed, might need to change the scenery, bring him in and see if he can hold on to the ball.
Yeah, I think he'll get an opportunity somewhere.
I do too.
Yeah. How about OZ?
Another receiver. I think he did enough with the Falcons before he came here that he'll get a look-see somewhere. He'll get a job. But he was another one who it was kind of mystifying how little he was used. He wasn't targeted except when the punter was throwing the ball. And he just didn't.
Or when Jalen was closing his eyes and throwing it up in the back of the end zone.
Yeah. Yeah. He was never really a part of the offense. But I think he'll be somewhere. How much he plays, I don't know. I don't know if he'll make a team, but yeah, it's tough. You got 50 new guys coming in from college every year. So a veteran like that, who's a borderline guy, it gets harder every year to get a job.
Yeah, I'll always be a little disappointed he wasn't able to just solidify that number 3 job last year.
Yeah, and I thought Zach Pascal would do that 2 years ago, and I thought Ozzie would do it this year, and neither one did. Now, some of that might be related to the offense or to Jalen just locking in on Devontae and AJ and Dallas when he's out there. How many times Nick said the offense runs through those 3 guys? I'm sure he told Jalen that a million times. And look, if AJ's open and Zach Pascal's open, who are you throwing the ball to? But they need more than those 3 guys, certainly, to run this offense at peak efficiency.
So of the offensive guys, if you had to bring one back, Boston?
Yeah.
I think we're in agreement there.
Yeah. What about out of the receivers?
Ozzie.
I'd bring back Julio. Touchdown machine.
Not really. Maybe here.
He had 3 last year.
Yeah. Which is so funny because his whole career, he didn't score touchdowns. That's like the one knock against his stats.
He's coming on.
All right. How about on defense? We'll go through these guys. Sean Bradley. Unfortunate for him, he got hurt right before a contract year, tore his Achilles. I think with the other additions they've made, like they might not need him, but I thought he was a good special teamer.
Matt Hennessy was asked what teammates he knows, and he said Sean Bradley. So I guess maybe he knows something we don't know. They played together at Temple, obviously. Yeah. But look, I don't know exactly who's going to make the team at that position. I think it's going to be an uphill climb for him. I think he'll be in a camp. What was he, a 6th-round pick initially?
Yeah.
He's a 6th-round pick who I think is a good special teamer. I'm not sure he's a great special teamer. He's not going to give you a whole lot of defense. So I think it might be tough for him to make a roster. I think he'll be around. He'll be on a practice squad. Maybe he'll get a call up. And we'll see. He's got to be healthy first. That's the big thing. He's got to prove. It's tough, man. That's the worst thing when you're in a contract year and you get hurt. Matt Hennessy was in that position himself. He missed all of last year. You got to prove not only that you can play, but that you're healthy.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing when you're already a fringe player.
Yeah.
They like him in the building. So maybe, if he shows he's healthy, maybe they bring him in and let him compete, get some preseason film out there if no one else will have him. Yeah,
I think that's fair. I think that would make sense because, not all these linebackers are known quantities. So you bring them in and see what you got, just see if you can run.
Yeah. How about Zach Cunningham? We know how we said how great he was at the year-end presser. With all that, I'm surprised he wasn't, first few minutes of free agency signing.
Could have signed him before free agency if you liked him that much. I kind of thought he'd be back, not as a starter, but maybe as a role guy, which I'd be fine with. Still could be. He might be looking for more money than the Eagles are willing to offer. I think that's likely, but I'm not sure he's going to get it. But they're bringing in linebackers, and there might be a point where if he waits too long, he might not get that opportunity here. So I think he can start on a bad team. I'm just not sure he's good enough to start on a good team.
Yeah, that's fair. He was available until August last year for a reason.
Yeah.
So, and I thought he had some okay moments last year. I'll always kind of look back and laugh at when they were getting like Zach Cunningham's coming back though. Everyone, he's coming back.
Yeah,
Save the defense.
Nick Morrow might be back too.
Nick Morrow has a job.
He does somehow.
Yeah. He's not on this list. How about Justin Evans? Kind of a curious thing last year. He comes out of nowhere, ends up winning a starting job, starts 4 of the first 5 games, and then he's on IR. It looks like he's about to come back. He never comes back. We never see him again.
They opened his practice window, right?
Yeah, then he had a setback.
And
He practiced.
I mean, he did. He's played something like 19 games the last 5 years. I mean, if I'm out there, if I'm a GM building a roster, I'm like, this guy can't stay healthy. And, I think he's okay when he plays. I thought he was all right when he did play, but I certainly wouldn't take a chance on him.
Yeah, last year might have been his final chance.
Could have been, yeah.
Shaq Leonard. I got sad every time we watched Shaq Leonard play.
Yeah.
Because he was so good.
Yeah.
And his body just doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah. I think he's done. I think he knows it. Yeah. I think he knows where, and he's not a guy that's gonna keep playing. Look, he made a lot of money. He's not a guy that's gonna stick around just for an extra paycheck like some players. He's made a lot of money. He's got a lot of pride. He's made a couple first-team All-Pros, a couple Pro Bowls. I think he's done.
It's such a shame. He was on a Hall of Fame trajectory early.
He really was.
Yeah,
he really was. Now maybe, he'll take a. I mean, he's still a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he'll take a year.
That's what makes it even tougher.
Yeah, maybe he'll. Now he does strike me as a guy who is going to be fine after football, just from. Talking to him a little bit, but maybe he takes a year off and just.
He has a business home in South Carolina, and it's like a car wash business, but it's not a physical setup. It's a company where they go out to their customers and wash cars.
Yeah,
so maybe he'll expand that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is maybe he takes a year to just get healthy, get with a really good trainer, rehab. And then just kind of try to come back next year and just see if he can get his wheels back. But I think more likely than not, he's not going to play again.
Okay, I'm going to go out of order here just a little bit and say Bradley Roby.
Yeah. How old is Roby? 28?
That's probably pushing 30. Been around for a long time.
Yeah. I'm going to look up how old
31.
He's 31. I think he's done. Yeah, he was drafted in 14.
Yeah.
He was a first-round pick.
Yeah, he had a nice career.
He played 10 years. He's been with 5 teams since 2018. Yeah, he's done. It's not there anymore. They might have had like 4 defensive starters who were never going to play again.
Yeah. I thought he wasn't their worst player on defense.
Who was?
Their worst player on defense? This is mean.
Oh. You said who wasn't, so it's only fair to ask who was.
Their worst player on defense. It has to be someone who actually.
I think Alex has the right answer that he put up. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
Yeah, it's probably true. Bradbury. Yeah. He was the most picked on player. It's very obvious when a cornerback is bad.
Yeah, I mean Shaq Leonard was worse than Bradbury.
Probably.
Yeah, but I think he only played 5 games once he got over here. There's a few others close, but
yeah, we don't need to go through that.
No, we don't need to relive that nightmare.
I did save Avonte Maddox for last. To me, I think he's the one who makes the most sense to bring back. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but it's going to have to be on a minimum wage deal with a lot of incentives for playing time. If he's on the roster, if he can get through training camp healthy, and you've got to have another plan because you can't count on him.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing with him because I think the Eagles really like the player, and I think it blinded them a little bit because they like the player so much. And it's if he can stay healthy, a really good player, versatile, plays he plays with the edge you want. The problem is his body can't withstand that. And we've seen it now for years. He just gets hurt. I'd be in on bringing him back, but you're right. It can't be the only plan. Yeah. You think he comes back? What's your gut tell you there?
I think he does.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And like he's still out there. I know he took a visit in New Orleans, didn't sign there. If I'm another team, like I have some interest in him, but yeah, I think there are obvious concerns here.
And a guy like that has to understand that he's not going to get a big contract because teams, you can't guarantee any money to a guy that might give you 6-8 games a year. You can't do it.
Yeah, it is a shame because
Yeah.
he was a 4th round pick. He did sign one extension, but then he doesn't even see the end of it because of the injuries.
Yeah.
It happens though.
Yeah, and it's a shame because you just love the way he plays the game. I mean, he plays it the right way.
Who's the least likely to be back out of all the guys we mentioned?
On both sides of the ball?
Yeah.
Or just defense? Least likely to be back. Well, I mean, Nick Morris, but no,
he's on
the talking about the guys who are still probably Shaq. Shaq's not, I mean, there's like 0% chance Shaq's going to be back.
I think Rashad Penny would be my answer.
Well,
why would he come back?
Because at least he's fresh. I mean, I think Penny's more likely than Shaq. Shaq can't play. All we know is Rashad Penny didn't play.
The mystery elements there.
Like if you gave Rashad Penny 100 carries, he'd get you 370 yards at a minimum. But Shaq can't make a tackle. Like he can't function. He's not a functional defensive player right now. Where I think Penny, and this is a ridiculous theoretical debate, but
why would Penny come back here
if you didn't have any other offers?
Yeah, but I'm saying like Shaq might not be opposed to coming back here. I think Penny will be opposed.
If Shaq doesn't have any offers and Penny has one, anyway.
All right.
Neither one's going to be back.
Fair enough. All right, let's take a break. We have more on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. Reuben, I wanted to talk a little bit about 2 losses in free agency that we haven't really talked about all that much. Sua Opeta and Jack Driscoll, who are like, they're guys who kind of forget even exist until you need them. And it's nice to have that depth.
That far.
For a fan who's not seeing him in the locker room every day.
Yeah. It's it's going to be a reshaped O-line, and I think they really like Hennessy as a backup inside guy. I'm guessing they like Tyler Steen more than maybe we thought to let both of them go, Sua and Driscoll. Maybe they think Steen can also back up outside. I mean, he played tackle in college. He looks more like a tackle than a guard. Doesn't mean he can play it. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because they both played. They both started a bunch of games. I think Sua started 10 and Driscoll started 17 here. So they both played. They're both okay backups. They're versatile. They're not great players, but look, you have a new offense, you have a new coordinator, and so the benefit of them being here for several years kind of is diluted by that. And they seem to really like Hennessy. So a little surprised they're both gone. I think when we talked about the potential free agents back in February, I think we both agreed that probably one of them would be back. So to see them both go is a little surprising.
I think when we did stay or go, each of us picked one of them to be back, thinking that was likely.
Yeah.
I wonder if teams start to value Eagles' backup offensive linemen more. We've seen a bunch go elsewhere and be successful. I wonder if that hinders them in trying to re-sign these guys.
That's interesting. It could be. Certainly, if you're getting a Jeff Stoutland guy, you're getting a guy that knows how to play and knows the fundamentals and has been well trained. And both these guys I think Sue has been here on and off since 2019 and Driscoll since 2020. So they both had a lot of years with Stout. Sam Malo goes to Pittsburgh. Big V goes to Detroit. Dillard, who just got released. So there's a bunch of them. And there's other guys. Coyote, Abasika. There's a bunch of former Eagles offensive linemen all over the league.
Nate Herbig.
Herbie. Maybe they have more value. I don't think Driscoll or Sue is ever going to be a starter in the league, like a regular opening day 17-game starter. But
which one's more likely to be a starter?
I think Sue.
I agree. Just because I think you can manufacture a guard a little easier than a tackle.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Driscoll's value is as a backup at both spots, where Sua is he's a guard. And
by the way, when the Dolphins signed Jack Driscoll, I mentioned it and got a lot of replies that like Jack Driscoll stinks. This city has become very spoiled by the tackle play for a long time. Like Jack Driscoll is an average backup offensive lineman in this league. He's not awful. No,
he's not. And look, he had some moments where he wasn't very good, but he's solid. He's a solid backup. And it's funny that you say that, because since Runyon and Trey, they've had great tackles. They've had some of the best tackles in the league. Runyon and Trey, and Lane and Jason Peters and Mulata. But there was about a 40-year period before that where their tackles were terrible. So it's funny to hear you say that we're spoiled, but it's true. But yeah, Driscoll, he's a solid guy. I think he's a valuable guy for the Dolphins.
Yeah. And it was always unfair to me that to him, it appeared unfair from where I sit that they would run the offense the exact same when Jack Driscoll was in there as they did with Lane Johnson. It's like, well, that's not the way you should do this.
Yeah, well, I guess if you help Driscoll more, then you have to change everything. And but he battled. He's a tough guy. He's a battler, and he get you through a game. Yeah. He's getting married, I think, this month, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, Jack Driscoll's getting married somewhere in like Central Jersey.
Oh, when are you going that? Are you staying over that night, or are you driving in one day?
I was not invited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The way you said it, I thought you got the invite.
No, I didn't get invited. I'm surprised you didn't.
Why am I Jack Driscoll guy?
What current Eagle are you most likely to invite you to his wedding?
It would have to be someone young, because no one who's known me for that long.
I thought you were saying because the older guys are married.
Oh, no.
Jordan Mulata is probably,
he already got married.
But he would have been the most likely. He loves you.
And I didn't get it.
I have to tell a story. I ran into Jordan Mulata at the Philadelphia Music Festival at World Cafe, and we're sitting there and we're listening to actually a band called Trap Rabbit. Logan Roth, his band, they're incredible, and Jordan's having a great time. He's really, really into music, and he was just yelling and screaming, and he's like, Rube, let's take a selfie and send it to Dave. Take a selfie, text it to you. Look what I found at the Philly Music Festival.
It's funny. Yeah. All right, let's move on here. We each picked a free agent who's still available, who we think might make some sense for the Eagles. Do you want to go first here?
Sure. I got Tyler Boyd, and
I like that name.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He's on my short list here.
He's a little older. I believe he's 29, and he's been in the league 8 years. It's just and look, they've added a couple receivers, but he's one notch above that. He's had a really consistent year. He has like 700, 800, 900 yards every year, 70 catches, gets in the end zone. Had a couple 1,000-yard seasons with the Bengals early on. He's still good, and I think he's a guy that would be a great fit as that third receiver. And he's, to be an 8-year veteran and still be 29 is unusual. So I'm sure his price is a little high. That's why he's still out there. Like all these guys, their price is too high. But I would think it would come down, and I think it would be a great addition.
Yeah, he was on my short list, and he's a prototypical slot receiver, which is not a bad thing. I think sometimes people hear that and they go, that's all he is. But no, that's a very valuable set of skills to have. I can give a different position. I was going to give another receiver. Can I tell you who I was going to say?
Yeah.
I was going to say Hunter Renfrow.
Sure.
Who coming off a pretty awful year with the Raiders. When he was healthy, he didn't get to play, but I've always been a big fan of his. Great route runner, definitely a prototypical slot. I don't think he'd cost as much as Tyler Boyd, so he's someone I'd be interested in. I'll give you Trey Herndon from the Jaguars. Been there his whole career. Just like if the Eagles do find another slot, that's fine. Bringing in a guy like Herndon who can back up that position and maybe compete for the starting job. He's a solid nickel. And I don't think he'd cost very much. And he's been on like 1-year deals the last few years in Jacksonville, and he hasn't re-signed there yet. So maybe he's available. That would be worth a phone call.
Yeah, I like that. You got to figure that position out.
Yeah.
He's a younger guy, right? 28 maybe?
I think he's 28, 29, something like that.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. We did not mention Justin Simmons or Eddie Jackson, who, look, I think they are worth monitoring, especially Justin Simmons. At the time when they signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson, from my understanding, it was like kind of an either-or thing. It was not, maybe we'll sign both of these guys. But the longer Simmons is out there, that price theoretically drops, and he has familiarity with this coaching staff. So I think it's worth keeping tabs on him if you're the Eagles.
Yeah, and the fact that you have a guy like that, I know he's a little older, but he's still really, really good. He's a Pro Bowler this year, second-team All-Pro, I think. He's a really good player still, hasn't shown any signs of decline. The fact that he's still out there tells you his price is really high. Otherwise, he'd be somewhere. He would have been signed by now. So one thing about Howie as a GM, he's very patient. Mm-hmm. He's very patient, and he'll wait and wait and wait. And if a guy signs for too much, then good luck to you. If his price gets down to that number that Howie has in mind, it's funny because he's aggressive. He's very aggressive, but he's very patient at the same time as a GM. And if that price he'll never, it's more than we want to pay him, but maybe sometimes he'll do that. But usually he'll just wait. And if that number comes down to where he likes it, he'll pounce. And
I think it would be like if they ever got to the point where the price made sense, it would have to be an understanding of, hey, you're not coming in here to be the long-term solution. We have some other players here we like, but you're a useful player, and we want to play you right now.
Yeah. Yep. That would be exciting.
And another guy on my short list was Calais Campbell, just because I want to see them sign Calais Campbell.
Yeah, you love him.
I love his game. He's been around forever. He's 38 and played really well last year.
He's still good. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm all for them adding players who are older than me.
He's like 6 years older than Fletch.
Yeah. It's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Like there's some guys who are just freaks. They can last forever.
That's the way it goes.
Is that Vince Young reference?
That's Vince Young.
My gosh. That's a reference that 3 people in the world will get.
Yeah, me, you, and Tim McManus probably. That might be it.
That's how it going, you Vince Young.
That's when he was talking about being misquoted when he wasn't on the Dream Team thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a 13-year-old Vince Young reference.
Owners meetings next week.
Yes.
I head down to Orlando, not visiting the mouse while I'm there.
No, you're not going to sneak over?
No. You know what's funny?
We got discount tickets at Universal,
You know what? And I thought about that. And is this me getting old? And I'm like, I don't even want to deal with that. It seems like Universal is fun, but it's just like so many people.
Not this time of year. It won't be too bad.
You don't think so?
Well, it is spring break, but
it's probably past spring break, right?
Yeah, probably past by the time you
or
get
maybe
there.
Not. I don't know. It seems like a whole big thing. I'm not going to have like a full day to do stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to have like a few hours. I don't know if it's worth going to Universal for a few hours.
You know what you should do is go to Universal but just go around like the boardwalk area, because that's like outside the park. So you don't have to deal with like the lines and security. Just walk, there's a lot of cool stuff around the boardwalk area.
What's around there?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
Just restaurants and just different attractions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't have big plans in Orlando other than the football stuff. And there's a lot of football stuff this week or next week. I'll get to talk to Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, and Jeffrey Lurie. Jeffrey Lurie is kind of the entree of that meal because he speaks once a year.
It's down to once a year. He used to speak
unless they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. He used to speak during training camp. There'd be like, oh, Mr. Lurie's going to talk in 5 minutes, and everybody would gather in a big circle. And before that, it was a few times a year. But yeah, he just does it once a year, which is unfortunate. I understand why he does it. He just doesn't. He just likes staying in the background. That's just where he's comfortable. I got a one-on-one with him a couple years ago, but all the questions had to be about Summer of Soul movie. Although we did talk about Sly and the Family Stone for quite a while, his favorite band. But yeah, what do you have for Jeff? If you got one question to Mr. Lurie, what would it be?
Why is Nick back? He hasn't had to answer this yet.
Yeah.
And he'll probably play it off like, oh, that was never even a thought. But it clearly was, because you don't fire both coordinators without thinking maybe the head coach is the problem.
Yeah.
And I watched him walk off that field in Tampa. I mean, there was almost literal smoke shooting out of his ears. He was angry. And I think there was probably, and look, we know it took them a long time before they did that year-end presser. They never officially announced that Nick was back, because you don't do that. Why would you announce the coach is back? But it was clearly a part of his thought process. And I want to kind of dig into what led him to this moment.
Maybe he's not coming back. Do we really know? They haven't announced it. How would you phrase it to make sure, like, if you ask it like, did you think about not bringing Nick back? He'll just say, oh, no. But if you say like,
I think it's, why did you decide to keep Nick?
What went into your decision to keep Nick? That's the way to ask it.
Yeah.
And I think most of the questions for him will be around Nick.
Yeah, like how short is the leash now? Does this change the outlook for him long term?
Yeah.
We don't have to ask him about Kelly Green anymore, because they brought that back.
Yeah.
That was like every year the owners' meetings was Kelly Green. Well, it's back, so there's no reason to ask that.
Okay, that's good.
It's our first chance to talk to Howie since all these moves, though. Very curious about what he'll say about Saquon.
That's what I'm most curious about, because it's such an out-of-character move.
Exactly. Like, why was it this player? Was it changing tide in the running back market? Like, what led to it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really our first chance to talk to him since all of the free agent movement. So, we'll get questions about Bryce Huff. We'll find out, how they reached an agreement with Josh Sweat. It looks like the Hassan Reddick saga will not have a conclusion by then. It could, but if it doesn't, we probably won't get much on that. He'll be tight-lipped about that, which I understand.
Yeah. How much time do you get with Howie usually? It's limited.
It's limited. Yeah. It's not an unlimited time.
Well, like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Like 10, 12 minutes.
And it's a shame too, that like you see when other teams make moves, their GM is quoted and interviewed. Howie is never available after these kind of moves. It used to be.
Yeah, it used to be. And he always used to tell us when there was news he would talk, and it hasn't really,
no.
Hasn't gone that way.
They've added 12 guys. He's talked 0 times. So it's a shame, because you'd like to know what they're thinking, what the plan is, without giving anything away. These guys are already here. So
yeah, well, honestly, though, a lot of times we learn way more from Howie in this period of time than we do before things have happened. Because like before free agency, he doesn't want to tip his hand.
Sure.
He doesn't want to tell you what he's thinking, because things can change, right?
Yeah.
Even before the draft, like he'll never make the Donnell Pumphrey mistake again, where he tells us how deep of a running back class it is, because when he ends up with Donnell Pumphrey, it looks silly. But in hindsight, sometimes he will explain to you like, yeah, this is why we traded for Kenny Pickett. We like this, and this. This is why we went after Saquon at that price, or like he'll be able to actually explain what's already happened. And I think he's more comfortable doing that than looking ahead.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about after the moves, like the day they sign Saquon, he should be on a Zoom call an hour later. I mean, not that Wednesday, not that Monday, but that Wednesday, and just explaining what it was. Get on there for 5 minutes and talk about the move. But anyway, nobody wants to hear me complain about access except Zach Berman. But so yeah, how long are you going to be down there? What, about 3 weeks?
No, just a few days.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be. The owners' meetings used to be really kind of longer, but they've been quicker to get them done each year. Obviously, the rules are a big part of the meeting. The Eagles proposed another onside kick alternative. They've done this now like 4 of the last 5 years, and it just won't pass. So it's funny. Like the language is actually like, I think it is a carbon copy of last year's language that didn't get passed. So I don't know why they're trying it again, but it would basically be a 4th and 20 to maintain possession from your own 20-yard line instead of an onside kick. You can only do it twice a game, and you have to be trailing in order to try it.
Interesting. It's so different that I can see why it doesn't get passed, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, the first rule like close to this was not put up until 2019, and it wasn't the Eagles' rule. And then they've slowly adopted it, and it's their baby now. That's John Ferrari.
Yeah. Who
does a great job for them.
Yeah, he does.
He's one of their assistant GMs, but he's kind of in this realm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some other rules coming up. The competition committee trying to ban the hip drop tackle, which I think is going to be really tricky to legislate. There's a new kickoff rule coming up, which could kind of coincide with some of the Eagles stuff. Rule changes are fun.
You love rule changes.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, it is important.
What do you make of the hip drop tackle?
I don't know.
Players are upset. The Players Association came out with a statement.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't think it'll pass, and I think I just don't know how you. What did the statement say?
The NFLPA?
Yeah, just paraphrasing.
We don't want it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I don't think that'll pass.
I think it has some support. We'll see.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all. Owners meetings every year. It's either Florida or Phoenix.
What do you prefer?
It's tricky because for work purposes, it's just easier to go to Florida. You're on the Eastern time. Flight's a little shorter, but I like Arizona more personally. And last year I stayed out in Arizona and did a road trip, so I really liked it then.
Yeah.
You know what I did last year? I brought 2 suitcases because I brought a suitcase for work clothes. Then I brought a suitcase for like my trip, which I was like taking off work. And I was like work mode. And then I flipped the switch into vacation mode.
That's really clever of you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, and no work related clothes were allowed in the road trip suitcase?
Yes. The only thing that transferred were my toiletry bag. I didn't bring 2 toothbrushes.
That surprises me, actually. I thought you'd have a separate toiletry bag for each.
I know we're
very regimented, in case you hadn't picked up on this.
I know we're pushing an hour here, but we're recording this on March 21st, 20 years after the vet was imploded. Any thoughts?
I hated the vet, and I think anybody that like romanticizes Veterans Stadium is delusional. It was a dump. It was a toxic waste site. It was a hellhole. It was a nightmare. I worked there from end of 87 through when the NovaCare opened. It was what, in 2000, I think. And
yeah, something like that.
I mean, we had this windowless, this dank, smelly windowless room for the media up on the 4th floor of the vet. And I mean, when a rat or a cat or a mouse would run around on the ceiling, like stuff would just pour out of the ceiling onto your laptop, into your clothes. And that happened every day. You ever hear the John Harbaugh story about the vet? He had just gotten hired in 98 as Eagles special teams coach before the 98 season. And he was staying at a hotel after he got hired down by the airport. And he couldn't sleep. He was so excited. And it was like midnight and he couldn't sleep. He's like, I'm going to go up to the stadium and just try to find my office. And like, there's no security there. Like, it's not like the Link. You could just walk into the vet. and he drives over there. He parks right by the entrance. There's like one security guard. He's sleeping. Harbs walks in. He goes down to the first floor where the coach's offices were. The place is completely empty, completely quiet. And he finds his office, and there's a little plaque on his door. It says Harbaugh, Coach Harbaugh. He sits down at his desk, and he's sitting there, and then he hears this noise. It's getting louder and louder. It's like this just rumbling noise, and he's like terrified. He's like, is somebody going to come kill me? And he doesn't know what's going on. And just then, the ceiling just opens up, and a dead cat just lands on his desk. And he said, that was my welcome to the NFL moment. That's what when I think of the Vet, it was the nastiest place. And I mean, the turf was, you think Giant Stadium or MetLife is bad. I mean, the turf at the Vet was horrible. The place was, I mean, Troy Aikman told me once that you could be on the bus going to the Vet for a game, and it could be the nicest, sunniest day. You're on the bus. Wow, what a beautiful day. You walk into the Vet, and you say it's dark and cloudy and foreboding. There was just something about the Vet. And the thing that got me was like the carpeting was always wet, even on a sunny day. You just never knew why. The place was nasty. And the day it was torn down 20 years ago today, I celebrated. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I hated that place.
It's so funny because we were producing like a little Vet special, a retrospect, and they asked a bunch of people to like, look into a camera and give some memories, and everyone's like remembering their favorite moments and their childhood memories from this stadium that was our dump. And then Rube gave that soliloquy pretty much verbatim for our television folks who were very confused.
I do have a favorite. You have a favorite moment from the Vet? Are you?
I don't have a ton. Like I went there as a little kid, so I don't remember a bunch.
Yeah.
I was there for a Phillies game when Robert Person hit 2 home runs and they won like 18-3.
Was that over the Cubs?
I think it was the Expos.
I was at an Expos game in Montreal at Parc Jarry. My favorite memory at the Vet was that 58-37 playoff game in '95 against the Lions. And Rodney Pete's greatest game ever, and one of his only good games ever, and that touchdown to Rob Carpenter, I think it was 43 yards, Hail Mary just before halftime, that put him up 51-7 at halftime. I think I got my 10 observations done pretty early that day.
Filed them by carrier pigeon. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, click that like button and subscribe there as well. That's it for Rube. I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you next week.